Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today I'll be making way too early Zach Wilson predictions and just looking at past rookies and how they've done in their first year. But before we get started today, just wanted to mention you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. If you haven't already, please make sure to check out the podcast Just Jets, and you can now also subscribe to the Just Jets Clips channel, where I'm taking shorter segments from the podcast and other longer videos that I have and just doing little snippets, a couple minutes. So please check it out. It'd mean a lot. Okay, so for this exercise, what I did was I looked at first round quarterbacks in 2020, 19, 18, 17, and 16. So a 5-year sample size of first round quarterbacks who played in their first year, and looked at the numbers, and I'm going to try to predict what I think Zach Wilson is going to do and how he is going to fare in the NFL in his first year. So with that, let's jump right into it. First, we will take a look at the numbers, and then we will get into my prediction. So let's take a look at my nice little chart that I made. So I'm looking at completion percentage, touchdowns per game, interceptions per game, yards per attempt, yards per game, and rating. So let's start with the most recent class: Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Tua Tagovailoa. Herbert with probably the best rookie season quarterback maybe ever. 66.6 completion percentage, 2.07 touchdowns per game, 0.67 interceptions per game, 7.3 YPA, 289.1 yards per game, and a 98.3 rating. Rounding out the class, you have an 89.8 from Joe Burrow in rating, an 87.1 from Tua Tagovailoa, and a better completion percentage for Burrow than Tua as well, pretty much across the board. The only thing that they were on the same with was interceptions per game, which was half an interception per game. This was a really good quarterback class for looking at production. It's one of the better ones looking at rating. Then going back to 2019, we see a similar trend. So Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, and Dwayne Haskins make up the 2019 class of first-round quarterbacks. And Murray led the way in completion percentage, which with a 64.4%. Touchdowns per game, he was at 1.25. Daniel Jones was actually at 1.85. But the turnovers, he had significantly more turnovers than both Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins, too, for that matter. Yards per attempt, the best one was Kyler Murray at 6.9. And then yards per game, Daniel Jones a slight edge in yards per game and rating, right? Both of those guys right around the 87, with Dwayne Haskins falling behind at a 76.1 rating and only 151.7 yards per game. The 2018 class, 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. So for Lamar Jackson, I just took his numbers from his starts. Same thing with Deshaun Watson the year prior. Deshaun Watson did get hurt, so he only has 6 starts under his belt, but he was really, really good that year. So let's take a look at the 2018 class first. Baker Mayfield jumps out, 63.8 completion percentage, 1.93 touchdowns per game, 1 interception per game, a 7.7 yards per attempt, leads the way by a country mile. 266.1 was the yards per game, and the rating was 93.7. Darnold was solid in his rookie year. I mean, completion percentage, not great. It was 3rd in the class for first-round quarterbacks, though. 1.3 touchdowns per game, which was more than Allen, Rosen, and Jackson. This is passing touchdowns. His interceptions per game was high, 1.15. Yards per attempt, 6.9, which was 3rd. 220.4 yards per game and a 77.6 rating. So this is the most recent example we have of a Jets rookie quarterback, and it was an okay rookie season. There were ups and downs, but to be fair, he did have a better rookie season than Allen, than Rosen. Maybe not Lamar Jackson when you add in the rushing, but definitely looked like he was going to be the guy at that point. As for the 2017 class, did not include Pat Mahomes because he only started 1 game. So I didn't think that was necessarily fair because that would really skew it after just 1 game. But let's take a look. Mitch Trubisky, not great. I mean, 59.4 was the completion percentage, 0.58 touchdowns per game, really low. The lowest on this list Also, interceptions per game was at 0.58. Yards per attempt, 6.6, 182.8 yards per game, and a 77.5 rating. Watson, as we said, absolutely phenomenal. 63 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns per game, 1.17 interceptions per game, 8.8 yards per attempt, 266.2 yards per game, and a 108.4 rating. And then to round it out for the sample size, let's take a look at 2016. No, I did not include Paxton Lynch because he only played a couple of games in his entire career. I think he played in 3 games, started 2. So I said not big enough sample size. So we're just looking at Goff and Wentz. So clearly Wentz with the better season, 62.4 completion percentage. His rating was a 79.3, 236.4 yards per game, while Jared Goff really struggled before his boy McVay got there. 155.6 yards per game, a 63.6 rating, 0.71 touchdown per game, and a 54.6 completion percentage. So looking at the average of these guys, which, I mean, it's a pretty solid sample size. You're looking at what? 15 quarterbacks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, 15 quarterbacks. And their average, so averaging them all out. And again, we're only looking at first round quarterbacks. I didn't want to do entire quarterback classes. That would have been way too long. So 60.53 is the average completion percentage. 1.28 is the average touchdowns per game. Interceptions per game on average is 0.82. 6.76 is the yards per attempt, and then yards per game to 11.9 for an 82.91 rating on average between all these quarterbacks. Now, if you were to pace that out over a 17-game season, you're looking at 60.5 completion percentage, 21.8 touchdowns. So let's round that up to 22 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 6.8 yards per attempt, 211.9 yards per game, or 3,602 passing yards on a 17-game season, and an 82.9 rating. So let's get to it. Let's get to my predictions. So based off of this, I am going to predict that the completion percentage for Zach Wilson is going to be a touch higher than average. So I'm going to have it at 62.3, which is pretty much between where Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray was. I mean, the most recent class had a really good completion percentage. I don't want to put it up into the mid-60s just yet. I think he can get to that. I want to temper expectations. I don't think it dips below 60. It wouldn't be shocking if it did, though, because let's see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys, more than half, no, just about half, have a completion percentage below 60%. I think we see above, though. I'm going to say 62.3. I say he's about average on the touchdowns per game. I'm going to put him at 22 passing touchdowns in 2021, which would be a pretty solid rate and an improvement from what we saw out of Sam Darnold in his rookie year. Interceptions per game and interceptions on total, I'm going to have him at 10 interceptions, so a little bit less than the average, which was 14. I think he's someone who is not going to turn the ball over a ton at the next level. I think we see that number dip below 10 in the future, but obviously a rookie quarterback is going to have a little bit of some mistakes. Yards per attempt, I expect to see this number higher over the course of his career, but let's put him at 7.1. That we have how many over 7? 1, 2, 3, 4. Justin Herbert is 1. Baker Mayfield is 2. Lamar Jackson is 3. And Deshaun Watson is 4 as the only other quarterbacks to be above 7 in yards per attempt. As for yards per game, I'm going to have him at 223.5, which would put him at 3,800 yards on a 17-game season. So 223.5 would put him at around a little above what Sam Darnold was in his rookie year. You do have some lower averages on here, which pulls this down. Like obviously the Goff at 155. You have Rosen and Allen with some low numbers. Lamar obviously had a low one. Dwayne Haskins had a low one, so that kind of throws it off. And you do have some on the high end, Like obviously Deshaun Watson's on the high end, Baker's on the high end, and Herbert's on the high end, but I think we see somewhere in the middle. So between, let's call it 220 and 230, I think we're going to see him. So give me 223.5, which is 3,800 yards. As for rating, the average rating was 82.9. I think we see him in the 87 range, so I'll give him 87.5, which that puts him a little bit above Tua, between what Tua and Burrow was this year. About what Kyler Murray did in his rookie season, I think would be pretty fair, and a little bit better than what we saw from Lamar Jackson. So my expectations are pretty high for Zach Wilson, as looking at what his career is going to be. But as a rookie, I think we have to temper expectations a little bit. But I wanted to put forward a realistic projection of what I think he could do in his rookie year, and this is what I came up with. So let me know in the comments down below. What's your expectation? Is my projection fair? Let me know, or on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll talk to you next time.